Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live. It's live, but it's only me here, which is absolutely fine. So, no stress there. Obviously, I'm recording it. So, when you're watching it back, just have a notebook and pen ready, or pen and paper, and we'll be going through exercises basically with most of the slides. And because no one's here tonight live, I'm just going to do it myself so that I could basically time it correctly, So once I'm done with each exercise, that should roughly give you enough time, more or less, to do them too in that time. So, yeah, anyway, I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. So, okay, so hopefully you can see that. Here we go. So yeah, mindset is today's topic, and basically talking about consistency, mastery, and how to lock in results long term, because that's what we want to do here. You've already gone off to a great start, but how can we create long-term consistency and master it? Because why not? That's basically the goal for everyone, what we all want to achieve in the long run. So, um, welcome, like I just mentioned. So mentioned the goal already, and like I say, you're already showing up, you're already training, you're already making progress. And today is about taking that consistency to the next level, making it stable no matter what life throws at you, and making sure that you don't lose momentum as well in all of this. So I've got the first question here. So I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how consistent do you feel right now in training, nutrition, and recovery? So in all three of those areas, I just want one number from you. And which one tends to slip first when life gets busy? So just to recap, on a scale of 1 to 10, how consistent do you feel you are right now in training, nutrition, and recovery? Is the first part to that question. And which one tends to slip first when life gets busy? Training, nutrition, or recovery? I would say for me, it's probably depends on the situation, but it's probably training that I would say I fall behind on because I really do try my best to stick with nutrition because I know nutrition plays a huge role. So does training, but nutrition plays a larger role in my personal goal. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So moving on. We've got four pillars essentially to consistency. So I'm going to go through each pillar. There's two slides per pillar, where I go into a bit more detail in the second slide. But again, I will be asking questions as well with most of these slides. So yeah, pillar one is all about clarity and going from goals to identity. And this one is really interesting for me because most people stop at goal setting. They don't really look at who they need to become and who they are becoming in the moment, in the present, in order to actually shift their identity to who they need to be, which will then equal greater consistency over time. So, yeah, like I say, most people stop at goal setting. So they might say, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to tone up. But goals can feel quite distant and they rely on willpower most of the time. So, what keeps you consistent long term isn't the goal, it is your identity. So, it's the difference between saying, like I mentioned, I want to lose 10 pounds versus I'm the type of person who takes care of her body through strength training and good food. So when it's identity, you don't negotiate with yourself at all. You're basically doing it on autopilot because it's already who you are. So my prompt here for you, my question is to finish this sentence. So you write, I'm the type of person who, and then blank. even when life gets busy. So it could be I'm the type of person who makes sure I hit my protein target even when life gets busy, or I'm a type of person who will hit my minimum 8,000 steps per day when life gets busy. So I'm just going to write mine. Okay. So I'll share mine as I go along. I might as well. So yeah, I've written I'm the type of person who does a minimum of 8,000 steps per day, even when life gets busy. Like really, I have written 10,000 steps per day, but I know myself and I know that sometimes I don't quite reach that. Like, sometimes you just don't. So but I do reach for minimum 8,000 and I know that's realistic for me. So yeah. Moving on. So long-term vision check. Okay, so going back to clarity, we want to be clear on our long term. So your 5 to 10 year self depends on today's choices, and we're not just building bodies, we're building lifestyles that last decades. So we want to be like these guys right here on the screen, and just being able to lift and just be physically able. Short-term goals are milestones, but your long-term goal, vision and goals are, it's your anchor. That vision is the anchor here. So I want you to ask yourself, how does being consistent today support the vision of me sorry, how does being consistent today support the version of me that I want to be in 5 years or 10 years time? Okay. So how does that consistency today support the version of you that you want to be in 5 to 10 years' time? So I'll give you a moment to write that down. Okay. So just know that this isn't just about the next few weeks or months. We're building a lifestyle and a body that will serve you decades from now. So it's really all about perspective to this slide and making today's choices easier so that you know you're going to be doing these long term because more often than not, people go on these journeys and they might do 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then they just flail off and stop doing you know, anything or they stop doing most of what they picked up during this time. And then in 5 or 10 years' time, they just, they're not the version of themselves they want to be. So really, this is really just about thinking of the future for you. Okay, so pillar two here is simplicity. So we need to audit and refine what we're doing, and we need to do more of what works and just cut out the noise. So we need to do less of what doesn't work. So we're going to do a bit of a return of investment audit here. And, at your level, you ladies, it's not just about adding more habits, it's about focusing your energy on the habits that drive the biggest bang for your bucks, so your biggest results. And it's also about trimming away the habits or the ones that don't really give you much return as well. It's really just analyzing this. I'm keeping it really simple. So in training, it might be showing up for 3 times a week and really nailing progressive overload. That's like a real bang for your buck kind of habit. In nutrition, it might be prioritizing your protein and hitting your water targets. Again, two very big for your bang um, habits that you can create. So consistency mastery is really identifying your highest rate of return of investment, even your actions and repeating them and not chasing the shiny objects. It's really just a matter of rinse and repeat, and keep progressing, keep developing, getting better. So my question for you is which one or two habits give you the biggest results, the biggest bang for your buck when you do them? So I'll just give you a moment to write them down, either just one or two. Okay. So for me, it is hitting my protein target because I found that since I've been eating more protein and enough protein, it's really driven my results. And my second one is making sure that I do strength train like minimum 3 times a week because it goes hand in hand with the protein really and my goal of, losing fat, getting stronger, and my metabolism just working more optimally as well. So yeah, that's really, really helped me. So yeah, have a look at your ones and just bear these ones in mind. So right. So also along with simplicity is consistency being about better basics and not necessarily more variety. So one trap a lot of people do fall into at this stage is chasing variety for the sake of novelty. But the other trap is doing the exact same thing forever and expecting endless progress. So you want to find a good balance because mastery and variety they work together here. So, mastery is nailing the fundamentals with better form, better intent, and progressive overload. Variety might be sprinkling in strategic changes to keep you engaged. So, this is in order to prevent plateaus and support recovery. So, an example might be this week I've thrown in more cardio for myself just in order to prevent plateaus in the gym because I tend to focus more on strength training and less on cardio. So, this week I thought, let me start adding in some cardio for myself just to prevent plateaus. And so far, I'm feeling really good for it. So that could be one option of variety or one example. And yeah, just think of it also like, this whole mastery versus variety is like, for example, with your food. Your staples are protein, vegetables, and water, and those three things would never change. Like they're going to stay the same, but you're going to season them differently so you don't get bored. You don't want to be eating plain old, chicken and broccoli all the time. Or even though, like, I love broccoli, I could eat it every day, to be honest, like roasted. And I have been for like the last like 2 days. But you do need variety with some things. So yeah, otherwise we will get bored. And the same with training, like the core movements stay the same, but we adjust tempo, rep ranges, or variations to keep your body and brain engaged, and also to keep your body guessing, because your body can see what's coming if you've done it enough times over and over again. That's why we do need that variety, especially progressive overload. As you'll remember, like I mentioned, slowing down your tempo, doing more rep ranges, and just making the exercise a little bit harder. Okay, so your question here is what's one exercise you've been doing for a long time, or it could be like the last month, um, where you could focus on mastery, and what's one small variation that could keep it fresh without losing the benefit. So I'm going to give you an example here of a press up, which you've all got in your plans. So a press up, there's always progression with a press up, even if you're doing press ups on your toes and you're clapping in between, like, you can elevate your feet and have them higher up to your upper body. So that's a progression. There's always something. So ask yourself, like, I mean, it might be push-ups for you, it might be something else, but I would suggest Push-ups are a good one here. But what's one small variation that could keep it fresh without losing the benefit for you? So I'll just give you a moment to write that down. So for me, I've also put a press up here, and don't feel like you have to, by the way. I just think it's a really good one for women. Um, and for me, I'm gonna focus on slowing my tempo down, to make sure, I'm already doing them on my toes, but making sure that I've got really good form with really good control. So slowing that tempo down. For you, it could be slowing the tempo down on your knees and making sure you're really in control there, or whatever variation you've got. So yes, just have a think about that, and the next time you do the exercise, that's what you're going to focus on. Okay, so moving on to pillar three. So this one is about structure and protecting your consistency. So protect your baseline of things that are your minimum, essentially, of what you're going to be doing, in order to keep progressing. So anyone can be consistent here when life flows, okay? But what separates those who maintain results long term is their ability to protect consistency when life gets chaotic. We're not always going to have a smooth week, are we? There's things that happen in life and we just can't help it. They're out of our control. So this is really about protecting and doing the minimum effective routine here. So, for example, a normal week, like where it's smooth, might be three full workouts, whereas your kind of protective baseline or protection of your baseline could be implementing 2 times 20 minute strength sessions and making sure you're walking most days if you're having a stressful week. So it's just giving yourself that minimum requirement. So it's not about falling off or starting over, on a Monday or whatever. It's about shrinking the habit, but keeping the baseline intact. Okay. So you don't have to do everything amazing. You just have to keep that baseline. So I just have a question for you, and we're going to have more questions at the end to do with each of these pillars that we'll go through. But this is just a simple question. In the past 6 weeks, how many weeks have not been smooth weeks? Like how many have been more chaotic or where something's just happened where, it's out of your control? I mean, holidays might count, at least like, weekends away and stuff, they could count because everything kind of goes out of whack. But I'm talking about really like life things, situations that happen. Okay, so write that down and then we shall move on. So keeping in tune with the structure, talking about environmental upgrades here. So if you make the right choice, the easy choice, that creates less decision fatigue and that equals more consistency. So, sometimes, we do it all the time when you and your friend or your partner might be walking along a strip of restaurants and you're wondering, where am I going to eat? And there's decision fatigue because there's so many ch food places to choose from, and it might take you an extra half an hour to come to a decision because you don't want to make the wrong one. So really, this is all just about making this very effortless and making sure that your environment isn't fighting against you, it's working with you instead. Okay, so that you can continue with your routine. So an example could be something that triggers you to train. So it could be keeping your dumbbells or your bands in sight and not hidden. With nutrition, it could be a go-to meal that you can prep 5 minutes in 5 minutes or in a few minutes, so there's no excuse of, oh, I didn't have enough time to prep something healthy. So it's really having these in your back pocket, ready to go and making sure that you're eliminating kind of decisions in those moments when life does get a bit stressful. So it could be even something like laying out your clothes the night before. If you're going to work out first thing in the morning, I'm sure, a couple of you do that right now because you're morning trainers. So yeah, just doing that would really, really help. So it's really just less about motivation and more about removing that friction and resistance between you actually wanting to do something and you doing it, even though your week's stressful. So the question here is, what is one environmental tweak that you can make this week to reduce friction? Okay, so what's one thing you can do to make your life easier with your plan, with your training, with your nutrition? Okay, so I'll give you a moment to write that down. Okay. For me, I've written a plan the next 4 nights worth of dinners. So I tend to cook enough for 2 portions for me. Um, Obviously, if you're cooking for other people, you'll have to, put that plan it in to your evening meals as well. So, yeah, for me, 4 nights worth of dinner are 4 meals essentially. So, just making sure that when I next do a food shop, which will be tomorrow, I buy enough food for 4 nights worth, essentially, or 2 lots of 2 meals. Um, and that's pretty simple, really, but it's just making sure I know what I'm eating. Because for breakfast and lunch, I tend to have quite similar things. So I know what I'm eating then. I keep it very simple. And my dinner, yeah, I like to change it up and feel a bit more excited about it. So yeah, just making sure I make them good meals and have enough protein and I feel good eating them. So yeah, um, hopefully you've all written yours down by now. So moving on now to pillar 4. So this is all about resilience and psychological consistency because we all know the mind is the main driver with long-term consistency with any goal. So this is just to reframe your triggers as your teachers because your triggers can really just make you really aware of things that can set you back in life and with your goals. So making sure that you are aware of these triggers first of all. So yeah, just know that most lapses in consistency aren't because you don't know what to do. It's because emotions or stress hijack our system. And that happens a lot, especially for us women. So the key really here is spotting the triggers. So it might be like stress eating after work. It might be skipping training when you're tired. It might be letting travel derail your routines. So the tool here is the if and then. If then that happens, basically, how can you plan around it? So being almost one step ahead of these triggers and knowing you know, what does trigger you. So for instance, if I feel too tired for a full session, you can say to yourself, I'll just do 10 minutes of mobility before dinner. So at least you're moving and you're keeping that momentum in some way. That way, you're always doing something and you break that all or nothing pattern, which I've spoken about before. So, your question here is simply what's your one trigger that you encounter for slipping up? Um, so, for me, it's probably when I haven't slept enough and I'm lacking energy in the day. So, I really do make sure that I sleep enough because when I lack energy and I feel tired in the day, I definitely crave more. I will want to eat more, and sometimes I might eat a little bit more, but with awareness. And I find that those are the days where I probably won't train, or I'll force myself to do something. But if I don't train, then I'll definitely make sure that I do a walk. So that will be like my minimum, hitting 10,000 steps, like I mentioned before. So yeah, just ask yourself, what is that number one trigger? Okay. So we're going to now look at redefining success. So, consistency equals flexible averages, not perfection. And you've heard me, and I'm sure you've heard other people say this many times before of, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to do something because consistency is not 100%. It's not perfection. It's the average over time. So, if you hit 80% of your plan for months, or even 70, 60% of your plan for months, you'll be light years ahead of someone who is perfect for 3 weeks and then disappears. It really is about that, those uh, the tasks and just getting it done as to the best of your ability and not having to be perfect. So instead of asking, did I nail it perfectly? You can ask, did I do enough to keep momentum? So that shift keeps you resilient instead of self-sabotaging. So your question here is, where are you holding yourself to an all or nothing standard, and how could you allow more flexible consistency? Okay, so I'll give you a moment to answer that. Where are you holding yourself to an all or nothing standard, and how could you allow more flexible consistency? Hopefully, I've taught you well and you don't hold yourself to an all or nothing standard at all, which I think I've taught you to do quite well. But if you have, it would be really interesting to know. So do reach out if you are doing this. But hopefully, you're all just allowing more flexible consistency. Okay, right. So just to recap now, um, I want you to really integrate this. So looking at the consistency loop. So we've got the clarity, which is who you are, this version of you that you you're not just aspiring to become, you are becoming it right now. Okay, then moving into simplicity. So what matters most? And then moving into structure, how can you protect your baseline, that structure of your daily routine of what you can do, even with chaotic weeks and things that are unexpected. And then resilience, so how you bounce back, when life happens to you, what is that minimum you can do? Remember, it doesn't have to be 100%, it can be 80%, 70%. So what can you do during your day that counts for 70%, where you're bouncing back and still continuing to do stuff? So this loop runs in the background of your life essentially, and it's keeping you consistent no matter the season. Okay. Ugh, talking about seasons, it's very dark and yeah, winter's looming. So I'm actually going to do a live soon about winter because it's a whole thing in itself and quite scary to think we've got a long, dark winter ahead and cold. Um, but anyway, right, guys, I've got one more slide for you. And this is, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. We're going to talk about your upgrade plan. Okay. So, it might be kind of repeated questions, but it's kind of a little bit different energy with this. So, yeah, you don't need more habits because you need upgraded habits only. Okay. Sometimes less is more. So it really here it's yeah, just about honing in and mastering consistency, and mastery is what locks in results for life. Okay, so as you can see here, you've got a task for each action, for each pillar, sorry. So pick one action from each pillar to refine this week. So I would also, like I said this week, but I would keep this on your wall somewhere, or somewhere you're gonna see it quite often, or at your desk if you're working from home. And just bear this in mind on a week to week basis as well, because this is going to be your plan. Okay, so from clarity. So clarity, um, it's to upgrade a goal into an identity statement. So the question I want to ask you here is what's a stronger identity statement you can step into, not just this week, but beyond? Okay. So it could be instead of I want to lose weight, it could be I'm someone who lifts weights to protect my long-term health. Okay. If you want energy, it could be instead of I want more energy, it could be I'm someone who prioritizes recovery so I can show up fully. So I'll give you a moment to write that down. So you can write, I'm someone who. Okay. So I've written down, I'm just going to share mine and I'll encourage you all to share your upgrade plan in the group. I really would love to see them. And I'm not just saying this, like I really, really do want to see them, and I'd love to know that you've watched this back as well. So yeah, for me, I've written, I'm someone who gets my energy from feeling strong, and that ultimately makes me go to the gym and lift because it's true. I get so much energy from feeling strong. Okay, so your second theme here, the pillar, is simplicity. So we're gonna cut a habit actually that doesn't move the needle, that doesn't really give us results. So if you have one that is, so that isn't working for you. So if you kind of have a look at your habits, we've kind of had a look at one or two habits that give us the most bang for our buck. But what's one habit that you can refine so it delivers more, or one habit that you can drop because it's not really moving the needle and giving you results? So it could be, for instance, a lot of people track every gram in terms of protein, carbs, and fats. But instead of doing that, simplify it and just track protein and total calories, which is what I get you to do anyway, because I just think, you know, uh, from your goals, you don't need to be tracking fats and carbs. Keep it simple, keep it easy, and keep it more sustainable. Another example could be instead of aiming for like 10 habits. It could be double down on two that gives you the biggest results. Again, just being really simple here. Or instead of do more cardio, it could be just committing to hitting 8 steps daily. And again, that's way more sustainable than making yourself run for 20 minutes every day, for instance. So yeah, just ask yourself, what's a habit you can refine, or drop, even if it's not really moving the needle. To be honest, I'm not really sure what mine is. I don't really have any habits that don't give me bang for my buck because I think I have refined it and I do keep it very simple. And if I've taught you well, then hopefully it is the same for you, but just double check your weekly kind of habits and see what's not really serving you here. Okay. So we'll move on next to structure. So protecting your baseline. This is to set a bare minimum plan. So what I want you to do for those chaotic weeks, I want you to create a safety net. So what's one structure or system that will protect your consistency when life gets hectic? Okay, so this is an example might be you can create a bare minimum workout plan. So, like I mentioned earlier, instead of 3 times full workouts, you can just do 2 times 20-minute sessions. that you can always hit regardless, or could be a meal default, like I mentioned earlier, like a prepped breakfast or lunch that keeps you on track. So it could be also pre-planning next week's workouts in your calendar every Sunday, so you know you're going to do it regardless of what happens as a non-negotiable. So really, these are like your non-negotiables, so just give yourself one for this week of what you can do if life gets hectic. Okay, and then we'll move on to the last final one. So, resilience. So, make an if-then plan for your biggest trigger. Okay, so I feel like this one might be the most helpful out of all of them, because we don't really know when we're going to get triggered. It just happens out of the blue. Um, so what you could say here is, well, my prompt to you here is, what is your biggest trigger? And as I mentioned, well, I asked you before, what is your biggest trigger? But this time I'm asking you in addition, is what is your if then plan um, that you can put in place so it never derails you? Okay, so it could be, for example, if I miss a workout through being really tired, then I'll do a 15-minute walk after work because I know that's doable and I know that's going to make me feel better. And I won't then be sat on my bum after work all evening. I at least get some movement in. Another example might be if I overeat at dinner, then I'll still have a protein heavy breakfast the next morning. Still making sure you're consistent on that within the plan. And then a final example might be if I feel overwhelmed, then I'll focus on just hitting my step goal that day. Okay, so that could be your bare minimum for that. So, yeah, I'll just give you another few seconds to write that down. What is your plan? Okay, we don't want these triggers to get in the way. Okay, right. Hopefully that's enough time. So, if you look back at the last four answers from this page only, I want you to take a picture and send it in the group chat. Like, it will be really great for everyone to see this and encourage others to do the same. Um, I should do mine. I will do mine. I need to write it all properly, and then I'm going to send it in the group, just so it gives you a bit of inspiration because I'll send it in the group before you would have watched this anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much it, ladies. So last slide is let's go. Let's do this. Let's master consistency. Let's have backup plans. Let's do our bare minimums and just keep that momentum going. This is really what it's all about. Keep that momentum flowing. So we're always progressing and we're always working towards our goals. So yes, that is it for today's live. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this back. And I look forward to hearing your takeaways and seeing your notes written in the group chat. So I will speak to you very soon.